virtue out of necessity is what I'd say applies across the board to the problem of Homeric language. But the main way in which modern scholarship has gone astray is in treating repetition as something primitive. And I just have no apology. There's no excuse I can make for that way of thinking when you're surrounded by classical music, also coming from dance. Incidentally, it's a very typical thing for the Homeric scholar to say that the meter of Homer is opaque, that nobody knows really where it came from. There are these theories of reconstruction from lyric forms, but all the lyric poetry from Homer in Greek is post-Homeric, demonstrably. You can invent as many lost traditions as you like, just as the cosmologists invent dark matter and dark energy. It's just creative fiction that keeps academic dogmas going. Here's the simple fact. Homeric meter is in double time. That is, each dactyl, bum, 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 bum. The two short bits equal in time the long bit. Plato mentions in the Republic that the up and down portions of the foot are in Homer, or in the dactyl, are of equal time. That's the arsis and thesis. And let me emphasize, arsis means the raising, thesis means the putting down. And let's not forget that in poetic traditions across the planet, India, Europe, not just Indo-European, the motion of the element of poetic motion in ancient tradition is called a foot. Now, is it too much to presume that that was once not a metaphor? Dance is where our poetic movements come from. And the thing about this Homeric meter is, as I said, the stressed or unstressed, or the downbeat and upbeat are of equal duration. That makes it unique in Indo-European poetry. The typical thing in the Indo-European languages, and in language in general, is that the stressed part of a foot is longer in duration than the unstressed part. Right? So like the iambic pentameter, including iambs in Greek tragedy. Ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. Or, the place where you find equal up and down elements, do I have to say this? Music, dance music, 4/4 time. To me, and I think to anyone, that's obvious. But this is the level of sort of blind dogmatism that has really polluted the way elementary Homer is taught, in the sense that this doctrine of oral composition without any connection to dance whatsoever, nothing's mentioned even. Whereas there's evidence from the ancient world for a thing called the dance of the Muses. The Muses dance, so Hesiod describes this. It's what they do. A chorus is a dance with song involved, not the other way around. It's there. The evidence is there. So yes, Homer comes from dance. Let's start from that. If you can produce an oral theory of composition out of that, fine. I mean, there are such things. Rap, for example, is composed to a downbeat. It would be that kind of thing that you would have to come up with. But I'm not exaggerating when I'm saying there's literally no comparative or any other sort of historical evidence for an oral tradition back of Homer. None. Especially when you factor in that the meter is not a speech meter. how was Homer performed? Is that the right question? I think that one has to say that there was a development in that, and Homer himself may represent, or herself, right, a moment of transition, because inside of the poems you have these bards who are singing, like Demodocus in Phaeacia in the Odyssey, Book 8 of the Odyssey, singing a song about the love affair of Ares and Aphrodite with these 9 boys dancing around him, giving him the beat, basically, while he sings. That, for various reasons, couldn't have been the case for performing the whole Odyssey. I mean, it's just too long. It's worse than a marathon for the dancers, and believe me, we've tried this. We've never tried to do more than 100, 200 lines. It's quite energetic. But how the rhapsode performed is probably the key thing to figure out, because there's evidence of what these rhapsodes were like in Plato's time, who were performing Homer. There was no dancing involved. There wasn't a lyre involved. Their prop seems to have been a staff. I think there's some evidence that it was for that stage of performance that Homer was composing, just as a modern symphony composer would write for an orchestra, which literally means the dancing space. But there's no dance involved. It's really defined by the instruments that are used. I think the best way to demonstrate it, though, is to demonstrate. I can show you the same set of lines. I can perform them, one in the sense in which you could dance to it, the other in which it becomes an actor's text. Now, all the stresses will be the same. I'm not sure how far you want to go with this, but one of the things that I worked on in my book, The Dance of the Muses, was a theory of the ancient Greek accent. So that's what I'll be displaying. As part of that, I could actually do a third thing. I'll read it in the way it sounds in modern Greek, just to show you how far things have changed, so that there's no sense of rhythm left in the way modern Greek would pronounce it. I'm not a fluent speaker of modern Greek, by the way, but I can do it enough to give you an idea. So, what I'll do first is the modern Greek of let's say, the first few lines of the Iliad. Then a dancing version, without dancers or a lyre, because I don't know how to reconstruct those. Then finally an actor's version, of the kind that I imagine that Plato and his crowd would have been familiar with. Or Virgil, with his poetry. Incidentally, with Virgil, you don't have the repetitions and the formulas anymore. That, to me, is the decisive break between the epic that came from dance in a way that knew its connection to epic as simply a rhythm for narrative composition. So let's see what I can do for you. With apologies to those who can speak modern Greek, this is how Homer would be pronounced, or stressed anyway, in terms of modern Greek. Okay? Listen, because you won't hear any dactyls. Mininaide thea, Peleiadio Achilleos, Ulomenin, Emuria Cariais, Alge Ethica, Pollastimus Sucas, Aidi Proiapsen, Heron, Autus de Gloria, Tauke Kunestin, Oia Noisite Pasi, Iostite Leetobuli, Ex Huda, da Prota dieste tin erisanti, Atraidiste, Anaxandron, kai Dios Achilleus. I mean, it could be done better than that, but there's one of the problems is there's no way to get a handle on the rhythm. Okay, now, the opening of the Iliad for a dancer, or a group of dancers. Mani nauide te a per leia dio Achilleus, olomenan ha muria caiois alge etake, pollas diptimus psucas audi proiapsen heron autos de heloria tauca cunessin oio noi site daita dios de teleto bula ex hudata prota diasta tenerisante atrevidaste Wanaxandron kai dios Achilles. And finally, what an actor might have done with it. Mani naede tea, peleia dio Achilleus, olomenan, hamuria caiois, alge etake, pollas diptimus psucas, audi proiapsen, heron, autos de heloria, tauca cunissin, oion noi site daita, dios de teleto bula, ex hudata prota diasta tenerisante, atreidaste Wanaxandron cae dios Achilles. Tistars poeteon, eridixune ace macestai. And it goes on, I think, in a different tone.